Ahoy spirit lovers, today we're touring Old Forester. The basic tour was $32 per person and the VIP was $70, which included in tasting. Come follow along, hope you enjoy. So this is the main entrance. On the right you'll see the shop where you can buy Old Forester merch. And here on the left is George's Bar where you can sample all kinds of great bourbon. And now we see here the spirit shop and Big Penny, their 19-plate column still.
And back in 1870, pharmaceutical sales meant bourbon. Bourbon was widely prescribed as a remedy for just about everything from a hangnail to a sore neck to backaches, whatever. Have a couple of sips of bourbon and call me in the morning instead of the 2 aspirin. Aspirin actually wasn't even introduced until the turn of the century, 1900. So didn't have an aspirin, so we had bourbon, okay? So that's how it started. But the problem was that doctors would prescribe this bourbon for folks, and they would faithfully have their bourbon, and they'd get sicker. And so what the heck's going on with that, right? Well, the problem was, back then, the distilling business was a little bit different than today. There was hundreds of little tiny distillers that were all over Kentucky. And what would happen is there was a group of people called rectifiers. These rectifiers would be what we'd maybe call a wholesale guy today. But what they would do is they would buy barrels from all these little distilleries. They would plop them all together and batch them. And then they would turn around and sell it to taverns or to doctors or wherever else it was going to be sold. In an effort to make that bourbon look like it was nice, finely aged bourbon, they would put additional stuff in that raw bourbon. Stuff, maybe prune juice or some fruit juice or something. But stuff like gunpowder would get in there, iodine. Maybe they'd take the spittoon from the bar and dump the spittoon juice in there. Well, as a solution to that, young George figured out that he was going to take bourbon, quality bourbon, aged bourbon, take it, put it in a glass bottle, seal the bottle, and then actually sign each and every one of those as a guarantee of the, personal guarantee actually, of the consistency and the quality of the bottle. So we're actually the first distiller ever to sell bourbon only in a sealed glass bottle.
Here we can see Old Forester's signature mash bill. It's 72% corn, 18% rye, and 10% barley. In these vats, we can see the actual fermentation process where yeast is added and the chemical process starts by sugars being converted into ethanol. That bubbling is the release of CO2. This is an empty vat. The cooling coils maintain the perfect temperature for yeast not to die. This is what copper plates look like individually. This is Old Forester's column still. She's 44 feet high, 19 copper plates, and put in 2018. This is an actual cooperage inside Old Forester and one of the few.
Yeah, so somebody was asking about char. So the first thing is that this is kind of the medium char that we use for most of our Old Forester products, okay? Yeah. The one exception to that, I'm going to have a little sip of that today, is our 1910. And that's actually a bourbon that we take, we put it for 4 years in a medium charred barrel. Take that typically 100 proof bourbon, put it back in a second barrel with a heavier char, kind of an alligator char like that for about 9 months. We'll see what the difference is, and that is kind of fun actually. So, if you want to call a bourbon a straight whiskey, it has to be aged for a minimum of 2 years. If you call it Kentucky straight whiskey or bourbon, it actually has to spend that time in Kentucky aging. So Old Forester, everything we do is a minimum of 4 years, so you won't see an age statement on any of our bottles. Typical for us is somewhere in the 4 to 6 range, is kind of the sweet spot.
This was a unique way for Old Forester to showcase their tasting notes. This is their temperature controlled rickhouse.